Good morning again. Now that you've had a break and some coffee, settle in for one of my favorite parts of MUFSO. This is our annual CEO panel. We have our Golden Chain Award winners and our Norman Award winner together on stage. Each spring, the Nation's Restaurant News editorial team selects 5 Golden Chain Award winners from the many, many executives in the food service industry. The selection process is thorough. The whole editorial team dukes it out on who's most deserving. We give this award to the best of the best in the restaurant industry. Our Golden Chain Award winners lead brands that are successful, innovative, and influential. Let me introduce you to our 2017 Golden Chain winners. We've got Jack Buderek, CEO of Marco's Pizza, Randy Garudi, CEO of Shake Shack, Lisa Ingram, President and CEO of White Castle, woohoo. David Overton, founder, chairman, Steve King, I'm sorry, I'm going too fast. Right. Steve King, CEO and chairman of Dave & Buster's. Yeah, all right. David Overton, founder, chairman, and CEO of the Cheesecake Factory. And we are also joined by our 2017 Norman Award winner, John Miller, president and CEO of Denny's. So just to give you a little background. Oh, yes. And we'll talk more about these awards later, but just to give you a little background, the Norman Award is named after the late Norman Brinker, who was known for his mentorship. So this award honors an executive who consistently mentors and inspires future restaurant leaders. And the award winner is chosen from a committee of former Norman Award winners. So tonight's gala, we're going to talk about these awards and celebrate the winners, but for now we're going to talk about stuff. Okay, so before we dive into the panel, remember that this session is interactive. I'm not the only one who gets to ask questions. So you've got little cards in front of you, you write your question on there, and then folks will come around and grab it and bring it up to me so you can pass it along to them. And yeah, now we're going to dig into it. Okay, so I wanted to start the panel talking about leadership. And I'm probably going to embarrass John Miller a little here, our Norman Award winner. He worked with Norman Brinker at Brinker International, and I was interviewing him for a story about this award, and he said something really I thought was beautiful. He said, Norman had this extraordinary ability to make you feel like you could just bend steel or walk through walls. That's the way it felt working for him. You just couldn't wait to go to work. Can I do what he did? No, but I tried to. And I just love that. And just the humility in that and the imperfection as a leader, but also striving to make everyone around you better. So my question for you, I'm getting to that, is how do you motivate your team? How do you empower thousands of people and, make them feel like they can fight dragons?
Just talk about food cost and labor cost every day. That really inspires
That works.
Yeah, okay.
Job security.
Kidding.
Big question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the longer down the path you travel, I think the more you value those lessons that people tried to get you to learn younger. And we do focus on the shift, and then outward from there. And it's so embedded in our industry, it's hard to take a step back and go, what really matters the most? And you learn, that people matter a whole lot more than, whether or not you have to throw a dish away because you made it wrong and you have to start over, or the ticket time, that all those metrics that we think are sacred, and they are, but what matters a lot more is to have a culture of care that looks after people so that people really are engaged and love what they do and love coming to work. And then they can love the customers and go from there. So this idea of being purpose-driven and values-led, I think, is something every company should talk about, all leaders should talk about it at all levels. What's the purpose of this organization? What are our values? And do we believe in the purpose? Because if you're a believer in something, if you're a follower of the faith, then you have to follow the precepts of that faith. So there's got to be these guiding principles or values of an organization. We all have them. We talk about them. They're posted on the walls. They're in the orientation of all our materials. And then past the orientation, oftentimes we'll forget those and get right back into sort of those daily metrics. And so if we give those more weight, then it's hard for employees coming through the ranks to feel like purpose and values matters as much as we mean for them to. So I do believe it's important to talk about them. At Denny's, if you ask any employee, what's your purpose? They say, we love feeding people. We're in the business of feeding people and we love it. And so that's got to show. So at every meeting we get people together, at the end of the meeting, we do a share the love exercise. Sometimes it's packing up shoes to give, homeless. Sometimes it's going to somewhere to feed some people. But whatever it is, it's a share the love moment. So the whole team can be involved in that to demonstrate that purpose really matters and it has to come through in how we lead. And then our guiding principles, we try to put a little bit behind each one so that they stick, the stories behind it. Everybody has a customer first guiding principle of some sort. Ours is called guest first. We take that a little further and talk about it's this other centeredness that matters, and we want to teach people that how you respond to your responsibilities is more important than how you react to whether or not your rights have been met, right? So one of the examples is when people are so quick, if they get cut off, to have a gesture, and their first reaction is always, why did you do that to me?
Yeah.
But the better society is one that says, please come in, let the car in. And so focusing on our responsibilities to be good citizens, guests first, others first. So the idea that we can get this to stick a little more than just have a meeting, graduate from the class, and move on.
Yeah, so not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk, and you're consistently bringing it up. Yeah, great. So a lot of the Golden Chain winners who are known for their culture. I wanted to ask Lisa about White Castle employees. So you were telling me that several come and they think this is a part, they're going to be here for a little bit and they're going to move on, but then they're there 30, 40 years later. So, that's amazing. How do you make folks want to stick around?
So I think it's really three things. So the first is the brand. So, whenever you talk about White Castle, or say that you work at White Castle, we have this great thing that happens, and somebody comes up to you and says, oh my gosh, I got to tell you a story about. This happened when we walked up on stage. Two people said, I got a story to tell you. And so that's really fun to be associated with a brand we've been around for almost 100 years.
100 years.
We build lots of wonderful, what we call memorable moments. And for us, that is being able to be just a small part of our customers' fun experience or great memory that they have in their life, whether that's with their friends, with their family, at a tailgate, at a party, at a wedding, at a wake, whatever. It's really a cool part of our brand, and so I think people are attracted to that. And then the second thing is that they feel like they're part of the family, so not just like the part of my family and the whole extended family. And we do that in a lot of different ways. So I am fourth generation. So my great-grandfather started the business in 1921.
So family owned for 100 years.
Yeah, for almost 100 years, yeah.
Not bad.
And there are 9 family members in our organization. And all 9 of our family members go out and visit the restaurants, visit our plants, interact with team members. One of my favorite things to do is to jump on a grill and make burgers, make sliders. And so when they see that, they feel like there's a connection, that they have the voice and the heart and the feelings of the family, and I think that makes them feel like it's a special place. And then the third is, we really try to build great leaders. We have, if I take our top 450 restaurant leaders, 442 of them started behind the counter and worked their way up.
Wow.
So they started in an hourly role and they worked their way up. And we have built amazing leaders who want to instill those values and being a great leader like you talked about as part of their purpose. And so we have people that will stay for us. They may come for 2 or 3 months, but they end up staying for 20, 30. One of my team members that's sitting here has been with us for 42 years. And he's part of my executive team.
Impressive.
Yeah, it's really an honor.
And Cheesecake Factory, David, was just named one of the best companies to work for this year, and you have 40,000 employees. How do you make Cheesecake Factory a place that people like to work, all of those people?
Well, we were very proud and happy to get Great Places to Work. We just got the 4th year.
4th year?
Every year we wake up in the morning to see if we got it the next year. Because you really never know. But we worked very hard to get that, and we're very proud of it. I think when we take surveys of our staff, the number one reason that they like working for us is pride. They have a lot of pride in the company, what we stand for, the product we serve, the restaurants we have, our reputation, so that they have that same pride in the company. And I think that's why many of them do stay unhappy. Also, that we really strive for operational excellence. And that excellence really goes down to every level of our staff. And it pulls them together because they know that that's what we try to do. And that's what we try to live by, and it's people, it's profit, and operational excellence. And that's what we constantly do to bring our people together. They like working at Cheesecake Factory. We treat them with a great amount of respect. We need them. They know we need them. And when you have such an experiential concept as Cheesecake Factory, without service, you have nothing. Without smiling faces, you have nothing. If people are not happy, the food alone, although it's great, it doesn't carry the whole experience. So as someone once said to me, if you want to have a company that's aligned, you have to hire people that are aligned. So we take a lot of time in who we hire, what they think, do they want to serve, are they service-minded, will they get off, if you will, on that experience every day, and we make them be nice to each other, just like everyone else here. When you have a great staff and you fire them up, we have a lot of programs too that lift people that just join us through the ranks. So whether it's dishwasher to cook and cook to kitchen manager or server or whatever the case may be to managers, I would say that probably 50% of our management team all started from the bottom up. And we foster that. We have great programs for that. And they appreciate that. They appreciate that. And all of it goes to become, being a great place to work.
Yeah.
When you try to get that designation, there's a tremendous amount of work behind it. It's not just the survey. There's much, much more that they look at. But as I say, we're very proud of it and very proud of the Cheesecake team and all the efforts the managers make to really live that and live it with the staff and their guests every day.
Yeah, so it sounds like when you start, you can see your path right away, so you know what you're working
Yeah,
towards.
and that goes a long way
Yeah.
to make people want to stay and love the concept.
And so the surveys, like, what kind of things are on that? I'm just curious.
They survey the whole staff.
Yeah.
I actually have not seen the survey.
Okay, but they
I haven't
maybe
actually
there's a
seen
reason
it, but
for it.
they ask how management is and how you feel and do you like to come
Really?
to work, and it's very involved. It's
Yeah.
not so easy to just get great places to work. You have to work at it.
Yeah.
You have to kind of know all the things to look at, and then it helps you because you're looking at what so many other companies do and why they're on the list, and it really helps you to do more if you really want to strive for that award.
Yeah, wow. So Shake Shack has been a leader, making lots of news with all the benefits and the packages and the wages that you've been doing. And so we're just wondering, where did this come from? Why did you decide to do that, and how's it been going?
It's going pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I deserve to be up on the panel with all these incredible leaders that I've been watching their brands my whole life. When I was 22, my first job, I always used to open Nation's Restaurant News and see that if you work for Cheesecake, you get a free BMW. So I always thought that was the best benefit going.
Come on, I got it.
You still doing that?
We'll get you a
So,
bus pass.
at Shake Shack, this whole thing was a whole big accident. We were fine dining guys and had a little hot dog cart that got pretty popular. But from the early days, long before there was Obamacare, we wanted to have a good benefits package. So we always have given that opportunity for our team members over 25 hours a week. It's affordable. We're really proud to say this year we're actually lowering the cost of our benefits package for a great majority of our population. But we've always wanted to do other things, just great vision, coverage. We added this year life insurance coverage for all of our leaders, paid parental leave up to 12 weeks for our leaders, and so many things that we hope will make the difference. But I think everybody said it here, everybody in the room, we wouldn't all be here if we didn't graduate people from hourly positions up, right? We all have examples of, in our team, people who made $8, $9, $10 an hour who now make six figures and lead a piece of our company. and it's always been amazing to me. But I think the way you get there is less those packages, although those are essential, and it's more about patting people on the back and showing them a mirror of what's inside themselves. If you think about the people that we employ, many of them first job, many of them, this is a low-paying job. They have a very hard time living even on the good wages that we all try to pay. And there's a lot of people in that group, people who've never had a person in their life say, you did a really good job on your shift tonight. You should be a leader.
Thank you.
And you did too. I'm gonna get you at the grill later in our shack in Uptown. And I remember in the second shack when we sort of decided, I wonder if this thing could ever have a second restaurant. And I was working there and I did just that. And I had a kid in tears. And you think about, that's what matters. So for us, we say leaders training future leaders. You know, our first leadership retreat in 2009, we had 18 people. We had 2.5 Shake Shacks at the time. This year, we will have 700 people come to our leadership retreat over a week. Every single salaried manager, not just GMs, every single manager will come to our leadership retreat. This year, we'll spend $1 million on this. As a public company, it's really hard to look at $1 million thing and try to explain why that makes sense to Wall Street.
Yeah.
That's a lot of points on EPS. And it is the last thing we will cut, because we just believe that if we can develop these guys, and in our leadership retreat, we all go away and really calibrate for the year, I think it's the most essential thing. For the single reason that our team spends their lives in a fryer, on a griddle, dealing with every dog ate my homework employee excuse for why they didn't show up. And when you treat these teams like adults, like leaders, and show them that they matter, they will do the same for their team, and then we can run. And without that, we're not going anywhere.
So it sounds like it's important to say thank you on every level.
Every day.
Yeah, but when you say calibrate, what do you guys do at this retreat?
We get real crazy. It's this year we're going to try to do a lot of it on Instagram, Facebook Live, and share it more often than we ever have. But we spend a week basically talking about the vision, talking about where we're headed, having my opportunity to share with the team kind of state of the shack. But then we're just nonstop doing leadership development opportunities. Everything from giving awards for tenure. You know, the most important thing is, do our guys stay, right? So when we celebrate everybody that stays. This year we're gonna have 50 people who've been here for 5 years. That doesn't sound like a lot, but for our new and small company, it's a huge number.
Yeah.
And we're gonna give them checks in front of everybody.
Nice.
We do things like an open mic night where anyone can get up in front of the 700 people and share what's on their mind.
Slam.
Things come out of that you would not believe. I mean, there's people who have said at that open mic, I was a heroin addict, my life was shot, Shake Shack gave me a chance, and now I'm here with you, and I want to thank that guy over there who brought me here. And what we do at that retreat is we say, hey, nice job, glad you're here. You better bring 10 of your friends next year, because you developed that many people. And if we're going to hit our growth, that's about how many people each person is going to need.
Yeah.
And it's essential just to get that time together in one shot once a year.
Oh, wow. So another part of this is working with franchisees. Jack, you took on the operation at Marco's when there was some tension between the company and the franchisees. You know, how do you build a relationship of trust, and how did you do that where you are now, where things are good?
A lot of us have worked in the franchisee-franchisor relationship, and in my career, that has not always been a good relationship. And one thing I wanted to do when we had my own company, and I wasn't publicly held, is to create that trust. And so at one point, as Jonathan Mays put in my article, he asked me what was the worst time in my career. And it was the time when all the franchisees, actually the master franchisees, the area reps, got up to support a second POS system, which, by the way, today they all want one POS system, but that's okay. But that was 5, 6, 7 years ago. Times change.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what happened was I went upstairs and I told my wife, I said, we're never going to build another store. And, you know, but what happened is that was a difficult time. And went to Brian Stevens, my president, and said, how do we get aligned? I want to be aligned. And he kind of reminded me what we did when I bought the brand in 2004. Our management team, Marco's executive management team, we got together in Detroit. We locked ourselves in a room for 4 days. And how are we going to grow the brand? How are we going to do this? Because it's critical that we're all in the same book. And I felt we were all the same after a couple months of operating. And what happened is in Detroit, after 2 days, I learned we weren't in this, management wasn't in the same book. We weren't even in the same building. And so the first thing you got to do is get your management team to be aligned. And we accomplished that over 4 days. We continue to do that by having weekly meetings, quarterly offsites. And so what we did is, after that experience, Brian and I contacted a company called Partners in Leadership that had demonstrated to one of our suppliers how you get alignment amongst each other. And so we worked a year, and we still do. We signed a 3-year contract with them where they taught us how to implement the culture, or the Marco's culture, where we hold each other accountable. It's accountable. And that is not only for the franchisor, but it's also for the franchisee. And so what happens when you go through that process, the important thing is the people that are out there really in the fringe, screaming and hollering, the loud, we were coached that the culture would slow that voice down, and it did happen. And so now we have these quarterly offsites, and we invite our master franchisee area, their area representative. They've got a council that represents them, our franchise advisory board, and we all go to an offsite in Toledo, and we talk about our issues, our problems, our objectives, what we want to hit as far as key results, and how do we get there. And I have a gentleman that observes, and last meeting, he said, I don't need to be here. You can't tell who's a company person, who's an area representative, master franchisee, or who's a franchisee. So it's really, in my opinion, common goals, aligned goals, transparency. And if you're transparent, they'll trust you. And that's what's key. If you're going to accomplish our goals of building 150 stores this year, you got to have trust.
So it sounds like across the board, it's about communication, constant diligence, like communicating, meeting, getting feedback, so that people feel heard, and then thanking them.
You're 100% correct. And communication, and I don't think there's anybody in the room that's going to say, I communicate 100% effectively.
Right.
It'd be nice. If you do, come see me, please.
Yeah.
My wife would like to hear that too, by the way. But it's important that you have communication and transparency. And that's something we work on as a team, and it creates trust. So those bad days that Jonathan talked about are behind us, which is good.
Yeah. So it probably makes the good days more
I can
sweet.
sleep at night.
Yes, good. So one question for the whole panel is advice. If you could go back and talk to yourself when you started your restaurant career, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself? So I don't know, if Steve, if you want to start.
Sure. I've actually given this advice a bunch of times to younger folks thinking about joining the industry. But I always think that you need to start with the segment that you want to join, more so than the company or the position, and really look for a segment that has growth. Because if you join a part of the industry that's growing quickly and and you're capable, then you're going to be given an awful lot of opportunity, and probably a lot of opportunity in a relatively quick order. And the converse is true. If you're in a shrinking part of the industry or a shrinking segment, it's just going to be very difficult for you to get the opportunities that you deserve, irrespective of your talent and/or how hard you work.
Yeah, great advice. How about, do you want to kick it off? Or another one? No
Good
pressure.
question. It's a good question.
No
I
pressure.
look back and what we've experienced in the last 3-4 years, and what I have done back, and I'll go back to culture. I'll go back to transparency. I'll go back to alignment of goals. And what I mean by that is, some of us may have individual stores, some may have multiple stores. But I think the important thing, if you want to accomplish certain things, is you communicate to your employees what your goals are. And I mean by that, what are your daily sales, record sales? How you want to beat that? How are you going to get there? Get the employees engaged. When I started the career a long time ago, You know, you couldn't share P&Ls. You couldn't share, at least we were coached not to, sales or anything. It's got to be transparent. That's what, you got to work as a team. If you work as a team, you can accomplish anything.
So then things aren't as mysterious. It's just,
Yes.
this is why I'm
They
doing
know what
this.
role they play
Yeah.
in order to achieve whatever goals you collectively agree to.
Yeah,
So that, I
you do that.
took me a long time to learn that, but
Yeah.
I think I'm there.
Good. Randy?
Yeah, I'll share with you what probably my most important mentor shared with me. When I graduated from school, I went and I worked at Chart House, and I lived in Aspen, and I was skiing, loving life. I moved to Hawaii with Chart House. I got to live in Maui and surf and love it. Then I moved to Seattle, lived on a houseboat. I was kayaking, I was doing all these different restaurants, and then I worked for a famous place in Seattle called Canlis, which is the best restaurant in Seattle, 70 years old. And Chris Canlis, my mentor, after a year and a half there, I decided I wanted to be a big shot New Yorker and move and work with Danny Meyer. And he sat me down and he said, "You're too young and stupid to hear me right now, but someday you'll tell this to other people. You know, that all that jumping around you're doing, well, that's not actually learning. Learning happens when you stay. And when you see the seasons change and you're sitting in the same chair." I've worked with Danny Meyer now for 18 years. Wow. In very different chairs, but along them have changed, and the jobs have changed. And I think we have an industry of millennials and now Gen Z who is just going to be able to pop. You know, they're ready to pop, and that's cool. They should. That's it. Let's not be a bunch of old people and say, "Oh, millennials, they're so hard." Let's deal with that means. And I think the best advice you can give them is, why don't you hang out for a little while? And with that, when you're in a place like that, the number one thing for me to share is, do you have a mentor? Really and truly. I don't care if you're selling burgers or cheesecakes or shoes. If you're in a place where you've got a mentor and you can sit in that chair for a year, you stay. And that's what I think young people need to hear.
So you can live on the houseboat, but once you get to a place where you have the mentor, you stay.
Yeah, sad thing is, I had that mentor, right? Now, I was fortunate in my life that I got to then meet Danny Meyer and have another one. And I think we need lots of mentors. But I think that the urge to jump in order to learn is not always true.
Yeah, it's a culture of jumping right now. Yeah. Lisa?
So I'll sort of piggyback on what Randy said, in that I think leadership happens at any level, and that is something that if I could go back and tell my younger self, it would be to look for more of that. And you know, the example that I'll give is when I was first going out of my career, I actually worked in the computer industry, and I always looked up for mentors or for leaders. And there were many opportunities where I had an opportunity to learn from a coworker or somebody that was at a lower level than me. And had I been more open to that, I would have been able to experience a greater enrichment of myself and probably avoided some of the mistakes that I made growing up in the ranks. And so I've really tried to bring that to White Castle. That's part of the reason in our corporate office, we ask everybody in our home office, what we call our corporate office, to go out and work in the castles.
Yeah.
So they get to experience what our team members experience and what the people in our plants experience. And it gives everybody an opportunity to really walk in the shoes of other people and learn about the leadership that those team members exhibit and the jobs that those team members have to help them be a better leader in themselves, whether they're working in accounting or finance or IS. And I think that that's really, really important, and I wish that I had embraced that earlier in my career.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So you can be mentored by people that aren't your boss.
Absolutely.
Right? Anywhere. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dave, do you want to share?
Sure. I think you can come up in the restaurant business and learn all the different jobs. When I did it, I probably had to be crazy. I was just trying to help my mother sell her cheesecakes. And I thought that these restaurateurs for 5 cents would go to Sara Lee. Nothing against Sara Lee. So I said, let's open a restaurant and really show the world how much people love our cheesecakes. And so I decided that, okay, and Beverly Hills would be a really good place to do that. And so I knew nothing I knew nothing about the restaurant business. I was never a waiter. I was always a musician going through college. And I think that we were a success because I was so naive. I didn't know one restaurant trick. All I knew is what I liked.
Yeah.
And so I cooked what I liked, and I never wanted a chef to walk out on me. So I only made what I could cook, and I wasn't a cook. So it was so simple. It was just this simple little, food with 12 cheesecakes at the time. And the first year was the toughest year I've ever had in my life. I didn't really understand the business. I didn't even have French fries because I didn't know how to operate a fryer. I had hash brown potatoes.
Ain't that thing scary?
And that's the truth.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. It was learning every single day and trying to understand what we had to do and how I wanted to treat people and what my parents liked about going to restaurants or not like about going to restaurants. And so if you have passion and if you can work hard, I think the restaurant business is fantastic. So really, those investors, which all made lots and lots of money, never should have given me a penny, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But somehow I had good instincts. I liked the business. I liked the people. And we all sort of grew up together. One of the reasons why I went public was because I wanted to thank and give ownership to the people that had gotten me there. And we went public with 5 restaurants. So I rather than going up, and I think even today, so many people have been through management and they have a certain mindset. I was never a manager. I came the other way.
Yeah.
So I was always looking at the business through different eyes and through entrepreneur eyes, if you will. And there was nothing I wouldn't try, and there was nothing I wouldn't do to be a success.
So if you were going to talk to yourself during that first year, would you say, it's going to get better and you're going to make this work? Like, what would you tell yourself?
I could have lost the business in the first year because I was so busy.
Yeah.
We had a line in front of our store a half hour before we opened. And I have to tell you this, and you'll all laugh, but we were supposed to open at 11:30, and I ran out of money, and I knew I didn't have enough training, and so I was so nervous I couldn't open at 11:30, and I put a sign this big in the window, open at 2, so I didn't have to do lunch. And that was our first day.
Welcome. Don't.
I was
come
so
here.
happy. I was so happy when 4 o'clock came around and the line stopped,
Yeah.
and we could regroup a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So trial by fire.
It really was. So a question is, could somebody come into the restaurant business today and start what could one day be a cheesecake factory or something? I think they could, but it takes some business sense, passion, hard work, and it was all encompassing. There was nothing really
You lived it
that meant
24/7.
any more than making Cheesecake Factory successful.
John, do you want to add?
I think it's been well said by the panels. I'll think, what I could add, but one of the lessons you learn, if I could have learned younger, I guess is the heart of the question, is to build lasting brand equities. We've seen brands rise and fall, and there's different reasons why. And so when you just look back to do autopsies on these and sort of opine on the fate of the industry, one theme that's consistent is, people, quality, consistency, value, we have these things we measure, and guests say they're important. But if they're important in the order the guests give them, then brands that don't stack in that order, that outperform the others, sort of defy that logic. So I sort of, as a student of human behavior, just study people. The younger you learn this lesson, it's a dynamic process. And so if your brand, you can do anything in life you want. You can't do everything. So a brand has to learn that lesson, build lasting brand equities. If a brand stands for quality, then don't ever compromise that quality. If it stands for speed and convenience, then make sure that core equity is never compromised. If it stands for sort of everyday value or special occasion or adult meeting and gathering or whatever it is your purpose is, figure it out and make sure. Now, that doesn't mean you don't ever evolve. That doesn't mean, it just means evolve slower to make sure that every change you make is consistent with why the consumer came. But lasting brand equities. I think we oftentimes, we took a hard look at what we do recently, and whatever brand I've been part of, there's limited time offers that make up X% of sales, and there's special things on your restaurant, then there's the 80-20 rule, the core items on the menu, and there's lots of other stuff. So I look at one of the things, the courageous leadership of Brinker recently to cut their menu to some core equities that really matter to their guests. I applaud those changes where people are going, hey, you know what, we're going to figure this out, and we're not going to throw in the towel, and we're going to become the brand we were meant to be. And I just think, we got to cheer for each other in this industry when people say, we're going to figure this out. Yeah. And we get far away from the model sometimes. One of my mentors early on was Paul Vineyard. He's not here today, but he started a concept called Bubba's over next to SMU, and then Babes. And when I go to Babes, I know exactly why I'm going to Babes, because they serve fried chicken. When I sit down at the table, the server comes by and says, you want chicken fried steak or do you want fried chicken? And that's the only decision you get to make. And then food starts coming to the table. And, that core equity, that the reason we come, and so no one is ever going to go in there and compromise that quality or the fact that it's never frozen or, all those core equities. So I'd say build lasting equities in your brand is a good lesson to learn. And you got to fight for that. And sometimes the pressures of the quarter, especially when you're public, can really get in the way of clarity. And I think it's really an important lesson to learn. I'd say another is just to put people first. The same way menus can be compromised or your brand proposition can be compromised, people can be compromised. And no one wants to work there. And when you see it happening, no one says anything at first. They go, oh, that was a mistake. We aren't really like this. Surely this is not the company I signed up for. Or what was said in those really noble speeches at the convention sounded one way, and these practices down the halls seem to be something different. You think people don't notice this stuff? We have an incredible sensitivity to these things around fairness and equities and how people are treated. We all can feel it and detect it. Like a shark can smell blood in the water, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think you're going to get away with people practices that aren't solid, think again. Think again. We have lots of choices on where we go to work. And so put people first. And if you think you couldn't because of the weight of the decisions in your business, think again. It's going to come back and get you. And so we have to be more thoughtful about people. And then the one thing I would say, the industry is such a large employer that what goes on in America, what goes on in society, goes on in our business. And so we have to have our heads in the sand as leaders in the restaurant industry. If we don't understand, we carry with us unconscious biases. And generation after generation after generation, we have not figured out how to create equities for women and minorities. And our industry, of all industries, has to do a better job. And if you aren't measuring it and taking proactive steps to do better than what our industry represents in director level and above, then we better figure it out quick. And it has to get better in our industry.
Yeah, well said. I'm glad for that. And does anyone want to add to that, just about how we could get better there? No.
I think each of us in our business needs to look at our business and make sure that we are living up to our own very high expectations of what our industry should look like and how we should operate. In our business, most of our general managers are women, and we try to make sure that we have that representation at all levels. We look at the representation that we have from minority groups and make sure that we have those. So I think it's leadership. It really is each of us in our businesses making sure that we have the representation that is relevant to our communities and to our team members. And we try to do that absolutely at White Castle.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about competition. I think we all can agree that there are so many places to buy food now. You could even, I've heard of cafes where when your car is getting fixed, they're selling you food while you wait. So you've got all these different places to buy it. You need to be more than just a place you can get food, right? So Steve, can you tell us a little bit about at Dave & Buster's how you've evolved, even maybe it's just internally, to focus on the experience side more than the restaurant side?
Sure. 35 years ago when Dave and Buster, and they were two real guys actually, Dave and Buster, not his given name Buster. You know, it was really founded on a very simple premise. It was the crossover between a restaurant, which was Buster's, and an arcade that Dave owned. And they saw the crossover between the two and said, hey, we're going to chuck it all. They were in Little Rock, Arkansas. They chucked it all and sold their businesses, moved to Dallas, Texas, and opened it under one roof. So that simple premise was really what started Dave and Buster's. And you know, over the years, or in the early days, I think they very much thought of the business as a restaurant with some other stuff, really focused primarily on dining. I think, you know, over time, you know, both the observations and the way people were using the business as well as the research clearly showed that, you know, people were really coming for the entertainment portion of the experience first. And the food and beverage was a great complement, and we needed to have excellent food and beverage to be able to fulfill that. And we're serious about food. I mean, we do over $5 million a unit in food and beverage, and you know, almost $12 million a unit in average sales. So we got to be very serious about both elements of that. But we have evolved that entertainment offering over the course of the last several years. So. We've always had the arcade piece, but you know, starting really about 2010, we began to really remodel the existing stores and build our new stores in an image that was much more akin to when you first walk in, maybe a Vegas sports book with the ability to watch. So now we're eat, drink, play, which we always were, and then we've added watch, and really it's focusing around watching sports primarily. But luckily for us, actually, the entertainment part of the business is the most profitable part of the business. And as we have emphasized that, the mix has shifted somewhat towards that. You know, we really think about our offering as, you know, it's kind of twofold, obviously the food and beverage part, but we have marketable capital that we deploy against the entertainment piece. And that really comes in the form of, you know, new games that we introduce every year, but also, you know, the evergreen content that we have from a viewing standpoint. So it's really worked well for us over the last several years.
So as you built that entertainment side, did you have to change like the way you approached the food side? Like even like the food you offered and how you offered it? Did that have to change?
I don't think it's very different from most restaurants in terms of our approach to the menu. I think if there is one thing that is different for us is we have these super high peaks relative to what I experienced, at least when I was working in casual dining, where so much of our volume really comes between Friday night and Sunday afternoon. That we really have to gear differently for volume than what we did in my prior experience. We just don't have as much time at the point of execution to do a lot of things that are maybe a little more fun, maybe a little more sophisticated that some of our competitors can do.
Yeah. Talking about evolving to meet new customers, Lisa, did you want to talk a little bit about White Castle and how you're reaching new people through different menu items?
Sure. So everybody in here probably knows that White Castle has a 2x2-inch beef slider, right? So we also, over the last 8 years, we have done more product development in the last 8 years than we've done in the last 80. So we were founded in 1921. I don't think we added a slice of cheese to our burgers until 1962. So we have a much broader menu. So whether you want a traditional beef slider, which we would never change, so really making that being the core part of our history and what a lot of people really crave us for, we don't touch the slider. But we do also have grilled chicken, we have turkey slider, we have the best breakfast sandwich out there. It's a fresh cracked egg on the grill that you can get with sausage or bacon on our bun or on toast or on these little Belgian waffles that we actually buy from Belgium and ship over here. They have a little maple syrup taste to them. They're really, really good. In addition, we've also expanded our side items. So you can get French fries at White Castle, but you can also get onion chips. We have our chicken rings, which are my kids' personal favorite. We also have shrimp. We have a bunch of limited time offer products that come in. Fried pickles was the big one this summer that was really popular. And then we also have smoothies, which you might not think of at White Castle as well. But it's fruits with yogurt, really, really good, high quality product. And so we have, our focus has absolutely been on expanding the menu because if you look at the trends, customers want more variety, they want more choices.
Right.
And while we want to continue to honor our heritage, the burger that brought us to where we are today, we also want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of those customers that may want more variety and may want different choices. So if you're a vegetarian, you can come to White Castle. We have a veggie slider. We introduced a black bean slider. If you want a chicken, we can give you that. If you want breakfast, you can get that 24/7. And so we believe that that's a really effective strategy for us to bring in customers that love our product, but also might want to try something different.
So you honor your past and you
Honor our
also,
past, but
yeah,
also
look
embrace
to the future. Yeah, great. Well, I've got more questions, but I want to open it up to folks out there. If you have a question, you can write it on the card. And people will bring it up. Now's your chance. I don't know how long this is going to take. But in the meantime, Jack, at Marco's Pizza, you said you have a product that was made by the original founder. Oh, thanks. So have you? Oh, okay. Well, I will read. This is from Carla Hall. Hold on. I'll come back to that. So the founder made this recipe, a smaller chain. Now you're growing like gangbusters. Have you had to change those original recipes? Like, how are you approaching the food now that you're big?
The answer's simple, no.
No.
And I could, for those who want to hear, I can tell you stories about KFC and other Chi-Chi's and where people have changed what got them to where they are. And so my experience and my belief is what Pat Giamarco created, we're not changing. I'm not a violent person, by the way, but if you want to see some violence, you try and be creative. And I'm not a very pleasant guy. And you know, that doesn't mean we don't go out there and try to understand what current trends are. Yes, we got, you know, the Blaze Pizzas in the world, what they're doing, and we have an R&D department that's out there doing all kinds of things, trying to find out what's there. But the basic core menu items, that when it comes to our pizza, you better not play around with it. So and the good thing is the majority of our franchisees, and not the majority, I'll say all of our franchisees, the reason they bought a franchise was the product.
Right.
It's not because of my personality or Brian's personality or Pat Giamarco's. It's the product.
Yeah.
So they don't have a desire to change it. So, and if you want to be a culinary chef, go someplace else.
Yeah. So honor what got you there.
Yes, that's how I do.
Yes. So Carla Hall's note is to Lisa Ingram. Congratulations on White Castle being one of the top 10 places that foreigners want to visit when they come to the U.S. Congrats.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Question from the group. What are you seeing as your biggest opportunity to stay relevant to new and younger consumers? So, Randy.
I'll start. First of all, I'm going to White Castle for lunch because I'm so hungry.
It sounds so
Everything you
good.
keep saying, it's like
I know.
reliving my childhood. I don't think I'm underestimating that this moment that we're all in is the biggest fundamental shift of our industry, maybe since the drive-through. I don't know if that's the right one to say, but the shift of the retail environment macro, the way our restaurants are being experienced. I mean, what we're talking about a lot, and the way we're naming it, is we got to be willing to do what everybody else is unwilling or unable to do, and we better figure out how to have the greatest experience, but adding convenience. Our brand's never been very convenient. So, I mean, we could have 10 panels just talking about delivery, right? And what that's all meaning all of a sudden to all of us, to our P&Ls, to our, yeah, and we've never had to do it. So I think the reality is this. My wife this week went on, and we all probably love Sweet Green. If you haven't had their salad, they're great. I love those guys. And she was hungry, and she went on a Postmates and ordered a Sweet Green salad. One salad. It's a $12 salad. It costs like $28 by the time it got there.
Yeah, yeah.
But you did it.
She doesn't care, and this is the
She
fact.
wanted it.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I know it's a strong statement. We are living in a time of irrational passion, and millennials, everyone who's young, more than happy to pay for convenience. My children, who are all under the age of 9, I don't believe in their lifetime they will go grocery shopping. Why should they? You know, they will get the best products to their front door within a few hours, and we are not a long way from that. So, you know, they will look at us and say, you guys used to go to a grocery, roll a cart around, take that stuff out, you used to put it on a conveyor belt. You talk to a human being, then you put it back in your
Olden
car. Then you
times,
go,
right?
That's crazy.
Put it in your car, then you took it out of your car.
That is crazy. And then, oh, by the way, then you had to prep that meal, cook that meal, and clean that meal. We are headed so quickly away from that. Whether we like it or not, it doesn't mean it goes away entirely, but it means we have to have the greatest community gathering places that we've ever had for when people want to do that. And we've got to be more convenient than ever for when people just want to do it like this. And I think those that will win in this next segment of our world will figure this out while continuing to have the greatest experiences. This experiential eating will not go away, but less and less so will it be the only way we engage. So that's what we're thinking about.
Yeah. So Denny's just got some round-the-clock delivery, and you're taking that diner experience, a very distinct experience, home. Like, how's it been going so far?
Denny's On Demand's doing well.
Yeah.
Spoken
Okay.
as a public CEO.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Okay, lots of questions here. So someone is wondering about international expansion of these wonderful brands. I noticed that Cheesecake Factory expanded in the Middle East before Europe. So did Shake Shack, the person believes. Curious about why. Is it about the financing, not the franchisees, and just why?
You want to start?
Sure, I can start. Something has to be a little cheaper, if you will. You either need real estate to be cheaper or you need labor to be cheaper in order for people to be able to put their franchise fee, if you will, on there. Europe, every single thing's expensive. Land's expensive, labor's expensive, government intervention is there. So it's really much harder, at least we found, to make any money in Europe. And so after really studying and being called by what we think is a fantastic company in the Middle East, we flew there, we looked at it. Life there is almost all malls anyways, because it's too hot. So people just get out of work, go to a mall, eat, socialize, shop, eat again, go home, and not a lot of people work. So we found that in Asia, we were able to do that with the labor and the way they run it, they were able to make some money. We were able to have successful restaurants. And in China, which we opened 2, and we have a 3rd one that'll open in a couple of months, we could also do that, and in Mexico. So we needed partners that were not just money. We get lots of calls from kings and that want it for their son or their family, but they don't know the first thing about operating a complicated restaurant. So we needed to find, pardon me?
Did you say a king?
Yeah, Kings.
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
Keep going.
and so we needed operating companies that could actually operate a Cheesecake Factory. So there are only a few that can do that, and we needed countries where they could make money, we could make money, and our product could sell at the right price. So that's why we're there. I think that there's a possibility we'll open in Europe, but Europe is much, much harder to do what we do with our complication. So that's why we did it.
Yeah, we of our 139 restaurants today, over 50 of them are international. When we had 2 restaurants, Mohammed Al-Shaya, our shared partner, came to us and said, I do Starbucks and Cheesecake Factory and P.F. Chang's, and I think you guys are special. And we kind of kicked each other under the table and laughed, like we just got 2 little restaurants. And he said, come to Kuwait.
Okay.
We did, we were amazed. And we literally said to each other, if a tree falls in Kuwait and we really F this up, nobody's going to see, so why don't we try it?
Yeah.
When the Harvard Business Study is written about whatever happened with this Shake Shack company and whether it became a great company or not, that decision will be in there somewhere, whether that was good or not. But what we've learned is that it doesn't matter if it's Kuwait or we're Shanghai, London, Moscow, Istanbul. It doesn't matter if you're there or 34th Street today. When we opened in Korea last year, 1,000 people lined up. 1,000. We have 5 restaurants in Korea now doing some of the highest volumes in there. It doesn't matter. Your brand is as known there, if not better, than it is here. So the traditional way of let's build out America and then go further, that we didn't need to deal with. So I think that's the world we're living in again. We have immediate information about the product. So we love the sort of second piece of our business of learning from partners. We knew that there was companies that were much better than us that we could learn from. So every time we go, it's kind of a little bit selfish. It's so that we can learn how to do our own business here a little better and grow a global brand.
So Steve, this is our last question, so no pressure. What advice do you have to operators who need to find and fund large restaurant space in the current real estate and capital markets? So how do you find those big spaces at a good price?
I think that first of all, there's a lot of real estate coming available for large spaces there right now, particularly in the mall environment. And, for us, we've identified a couple hundred sites in the U.S. that we think are viable for Dave & Buster's, literally down to the street corner of where we want to go. But there's 1,100 malls out in the United States, so we're a very small piece of filling the gap for that. But I think in terms of finding space, I think finding space right now is considerably easier, I would say, than what it was 10 years ago, at least for us, because we're looking for 40,000 square feet or more typically in terms of size. And a lot of the big boxes, i.e. the Sears, the JCPenney's, et cetera, are being subdivided at this point. Or some cases, they're just being completely torn down and they're building these new lifestyle centers. And what is attractive to us from a mall standpoint, everybody on Wall Street thinks all the malls are going away, right? So they think they're all going away, which is far from the truth. And what's attractive to us is they have great access typically. I mean, they're usually somewhere, on a highway system that gives us our guests an ability to come to us from a pretty substantial distance. They usually have great parking, and to the extent that we can get the right space with the right visibility, it meets all the criteria that we need. And we tend to be a traffic donor to malls, so at this point, we're very attractive for mall developers to come and ask us to be a part of their redevelopment.
Right. I've been on the Long Island Railroad where there are hordes of people talking about going to Dave & Buster's, so I can see why it would be attractive to have in the mall. So, all right, everyone, that concludes our CEO panel. I just want to thank again these industry leaders for sharing their experience and their knowledge with us. Let's give them another great big round of applause.
Way to go.